Welcome to the next episode of Brandland. I am Garrett Justice, and I'm joined today by Tony Mickelsen, who is the growth marketing lead at Neighbor. Tony, how are you doing today?
Doing awesome, Garrett. Thanks for having me.
It's so awesome to have you on the show and catch up a little bit. For those of you listening who don't know, Tony and I worked together a lot in the past, and so it's so awesome to have him on here, share some of his expertise. So Tony, for those who don't know your background already, why don't you tell us a little bit more about, your career so far and what Neighbor does?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a growth marketer. Tangentially, I'm very interested in brand and product and that side of marketing. Some common LinkedIn job titles for people that do what I do. There's a lot of terms out there, but digital advertising, paid search, paid social, PPC, the list goes on. There's too many names for everything these days.
You're the left brain marketer, that analytical type guy, right?
Yeah, that's right. Advertising is a numbers game. So you tend to see a lot of numbers people doing what I do. I'm the guy working on Google ads and Facebook ads and spending a lot of money on the company credit card.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm at Neighbor right now. This is the third tech company I've worked at. Neighbor is a peer-to-peer or sharing economy marketplace that finds people who need to store stuff or vehicles, and then we match them with unused space that's listed by a Neighbor host. So it probably sounds similar to Uber or Lyft for ride sharing, or Airbnb for vacation rentals, But for Neighbor, in comparison to a storage facility, our renters get a far superior experience and a good deal. Storage on Neighbor is often 50% cheaper than an equivalent storage unit in your area. And then on the other side of the marketplace, the hosts usually make anywhere between $50 and sometimes as much as $1,000 per month on the space they're just not using.
Yeah. It's a brilliant idea. I love the idea for Neighbor. It's essentially just like you were saying, that the Airbnb or the Uber of storage, right? Personal storage. And it's such a great idea. And I know you guys have just been growing like crazy. Is that right?
Yeah. We were founded in 2017 by three guys fresh out of college. And they set out to disrupt the $40 billion a year self-storage industry. We're growing quickly. Small hiring plug. We're hiring here. So to any podcast listeners out there, we're looking for people in brand and creative, customer success, engineering, growth marketing, SEO. If you're interested, head over to neighbor.com careers page. But yeah, growing quickly and loving every second of it.
And I was going to say the best part is you'd get a chance to work closely with Tony too, which is he's an awesome guy to work with. So Tony, that's awesome context. And I'm really excited to dive in and talk to you about our topic today, especially with that context of Neighbor and what you've done there and some of your previous experiences. And so as we talked about, you and I, before we jumped on here, about what we wanted to talk about today, you kind of mentioned this idea of how, as this left-brained analytical marketer trained in statistics, is like what you studied in college, right? You typically in marketing, you have very left-brained and also very right-brained people. And the left-brained people are the analytical ones that gravitate towards roles kind of like what you're doing. The right-brained are very, creative, the brand building type people. And so I'm curious, as that left-brain marketer, analytical marketer, how do you feel about typical brand building, quote unquote, marketing activities, right? And how has your thoughts about brand building marketing activities kind of changed and evolved over time through your career so far?
Yeah, this is a good one. I'm only slightly ashamed to say that I used to scoff at the concept of brand, coming out of a statistics degree in college. I always loved marketing, by the way, but I was I always gravitated towards the numbers side. But yeah, when I was young, I thought brand was just fluffy, creative marketing stuff, right? And I saw, the left brain of marketing and the right brain of marketing as two opposite schools of thought. But that's changed a lot in the last just recent years. I've grown up a little bit, and I see marketing very differently. And I really believe that the left brain and the right brain of marketing can coexist. But more than that, I think they really depend on one another.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And even though you're that left brain type of people, there's a lot of you out there. There's a lot of, I would probably fall in that category too. So, and you know what, I was actually just talking about someone today about this idea. I kind of think that in marketing, you have really two types of activities. You have the sales activation activities, which is typically where those left brain people gravitate towards, and you have the brand building activities, which are often where the right brain people gravitate towards. And I think the best marketing out there leverages both of those expertise, right? And you can build something that people love and they feel and they desire on that brand building side, that then leads to the result of growing a business profitably in the right way. So it's all good stuff, but it's interesting, I think, hearing that perspective, from you and how that you've evolved over time. So talk to me more about this evolution and how you think the importance of, how you see the importance of brand building activities, and what experiences or lessons have you learned along the way that have just kind of caused you to change your mind a little bit? Because you talked about how you were on the other side of the fence a little bit. You've changed your mind a little bit. Tell me a little bit more about how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, the evolution really is born out of necessity, right? I'm asked to do something at my job, and I got to do something I've never done before, and then I learn something, right? And as someone who loves marketing, that's really fun. Even when it crosses into that right brain side of things, I've actually really grown to love the other half of marketing. But I've learned a couple things, and first thing I'd want to say is I've learned that brand is about nailing trust. There's a fine line building trust with users, especially at a peer-to-peer marketplace like Neighbor. It's do or die, right? Neighbor is trying to get a host to sign up a part of their home as a storage space for a stranger. It's kind of scary. You think about it at first. And then on the other side, how do you get a renter to trust a stranger with their life's treasures, or, a car or an RV? And so those are some tough product and branding questions. And, we test them, we work on them, and we try to acquire thousands of signups through that trust, so that renters have plenty of options in their area and hosts have plenty of opportunities to make money, so that everyone's happy. And so it's been very interesting learning about trust and brand in a high stakes scenario. I've also learned, you got to get out and talk to your users. I mean, we've all heard that, right? And we all do it in some way. Companies have different opportunities to do it in different ways. But, at Neighbor, being at an early stage startup, I've had the luxury of being able to talk to a lot of our users. And that's been really meaningful. They have real lives, and they're trying to solve real problems. They have real concerns. I've probably spoken to 300 to 500 of our users, and it's been an incredible experience. And the brand really, in my mind, is more and more through their eyes. And without those conversations with them, that's difficult.
That's just to jump in real quick, that reminds me of just like some of the classic quotes about what is a brand. It's, Jeff Bezos has said, it's like what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So it's really their perception of you that hopefully is founded on that trust. Right. So I love that. I think that totally makes sense.
Yeah. I can't agree more. And, and that leads to the next one. The last thing I'll say that I learned is about, magical brand moments. Some people call them aha moments. And, it's so important to really understand what that is for your users, because you can build a brand around that. And, for Neighbor, it's that moment when a host and a renter meet and they realize, like, holy cow, this is more than just a storage transaction. Because let's be real, storage isn't a sexy industry, right? But good branding, good product, you can make something like storage truly special. And it's been so fun getting to experience that largely through the eyes of our users.
Yeah. And I think what's so fascinating about that to me also is you talked about brand trust, which I'm so glad you did, because it's such a big topic today with everything going on in our world. Every brand out there should be hopefully building more and more trust. And that's one of the main purposes of it. But what I think is fascinating too about, inherently in your business model, is this trust. So if someone has a great experience from another person who's renting out their space, right? They build trust there. They're probably trusting your brand even more for facilitating that conversation. So I love that idea. I want to go deeper a little bit on this idea of, magical brand moments. Tell me a little bit more about what that looks like at Neighbor and how you try to make that happen through, the marketing that you and your team are doing.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to facilitate a connection between two people who are probably strangers. They probably live within a few miles of each other. And yet we're hoping that they have this unique opportunity through storage. And, thinking about that, taking a step back, we live in this world that's becoming less and less social in a traditional sense, right? Yeah, we have social media, but honestly, how social is social media? I think we all wonder that sometimes. But what I mean is, modern social products struggle to create new, recurring, deep and meaningful relationships or user engagement. It's not easy. And I think Neighbor is doing that in a unique way. And, to make a comparison, I'd argue that Uber, Airbnb, Instacart, they don't pass that test. I don't think they create new, recurring, deep and meaningful relationships between strangers who, may even potentially become friends, which we have seen on our platform, by the way. But this is happening on Neighbor. Now, obviously, those companies I mentioned, they're great products. And I'm really just, making a point here just to show how unique Neighbor is as an example, so that we can all think about how unique our own products and companies are and go build magical brand moments.
Yeah.
Right. And so for Neighbor, it's a uniquely social and deeply engaging platform. And it's so fun to be a marketer for a product like that.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love hearing that. I love your takeaway from that too, is, find out what I'm hearing you say is find out what your secret sauce is. Find out what makes you unique as a product, as a service, as a company, as a brand, and then double down on it, right? Like make sure that you can have as many of those magical brand moments as possible, facilitated that, based on what you do unique and great at your core as a company or product. And that's where you start to win and build this trust over time. Is that right?
Absolutely correct. Yep.
Love it. So cool. So the next question I have for you is we, kind of think about this idea of, this left brain analytical marketer. I know that, us left brain analytical marketers are thinking about the metrics and measuring success. A lot of times that's kind of how we see the world. So how have you measured success with these magical brand moments? Like, what are you looking at? I'm just curious, like, what are you looking at? What metrics are you looking at to really judge, are you successful? Are these working? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, at a high level, let's look at some numbers. Like, we don't want to make this too complicated, right? So Neighbor is growing fast across the country. Like I think we're doubling multiple times each year as a business. And so these users are voting for Neighbor with their time and their dollars. And, and to add to that, when our users walk away from the experience with Neighbor, they're leaving us world-class customer satisfaction ratings. So kind of in two ways, there's validation here that they're having a magical moment. And, that's kind of in a quantitative sense, but on a qualitative sense, we see a lot of validation as well about these magical moments. For example, it's very common on Neighbor to have a host go and help the renter move their stuff in. And it's not expected of the host in any way. They just do that because they feel like it. And that means a lot to the renters. And so somehow Neighbor has created this habit, without even talking about it, of helping each other. And I think part of it is brand, with a name like Neighbor as your company, like there's something going on there. There's even unique occurrences of things happening, like there was a host that like baked cookies, there was another story of a renter who was trying to back their RV into the storage spot, and they were struggling. And the literal next door neighbor, the neighbor host, saw this happening and went and taught the neighbor renter how to back up an RV. The guy who wasn't even a Neighbor user, he knew what his neighbor was doing, as a Neighbor host. And so anyway, it's really cool to see these magical moments happening and even see them transcend the direct host to renter relationship.
Yeah.
Another anecdote is, myself, like I've been a renter on Neighbor, and I've been a host on Neighbor. We were building a home and we were homeless, living with parents for several months. We moved our stuff into a lady's basement, and then our home got built and we moved our stuff out. And then we had an unfinished basement that was empty. So we are renting it out now to like 5 people, mostly college students. And so we see that a lot on the platform where life circumstances change and a renter becomes a host. And it's like, I don't know, there's this virtuous cycle going on, like, those people helped me, so I'm going to help someone else, get a good deal on storage. And so it's so fun watching this happen. And as a marketer, it's our job to capture those, those pure brand moments in a bottle, translate them into relevant bite-sized chunks, and then use the right megaphone, all while protecting the integrity of those brand moments.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but sure is fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So what I'm hearing you say too on the measurement side is, there's some specific, quantitative measurements that you're going to want to monitor and make sure, but equally important is you can't lose sight of like these qualitative stories that are helping exhibit that, hey, this is working, we're doing something good, and let's keep at it. Right. Love it. It's so cool. So I have one last question for you. I know we're close on time here, but as we kind of wrap this up, I want to bring it back to like what we kind of started about, which is, you talked about your background in paid advertising, and that's where you live a lot of, your time. So how do you leverage these magical brand moments as a digital advertiser? Like, how do you combine those worlds of those brand building things like that and, the left brain quantitative digital advertising that you're doing?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I would have answered this question differently. I would have talked to you about ad copy testing and brand bidding versus non-brand bidding, Google paid search, best practice stuff, but I don't think about that stuff as much anymore because the world of digital advertising is changing at a rapid pace. In short, even in PPC advertising, the robots are coming to take all of our jobs, I exaggerate a little bit, but it's true to
True.
an extent.
Yeah.
You know, the fact of the matter is that PPC marketers today do far less ad copywriting or testing than they did 5 years ago. You know, it's less about, okay, should we do the 15-second video or the 30-second video? You know, there's still some of that going on, but you know, there's this new breed of ad campaign, you know, created by Facebook and Google, where you know, an advertiser will just upload 5 images, 5 videos, 5 headlines, and then the algorithm goes and finds all possible combinations of those and finds the best one for you. Or think about Facebook lookalike audiences. You choose your 100 best customers, take their email addresses, upload it into Facebook, and Facebook spits out this recipe that describes your best customers. And then Facebook says, hey, we can give you access to the 1% of America that is most similar to your best 100 customers. And you can target them with ads. How cool is that, right? It takes a lot of the old work of advertisers out of the picture, but there's new problems, right? And this is where, you know, these brand moments are going to come in. Although this cool rocket ship, these new ad campaigns that Facebook and Google have built, they're still kind of dumb. And they still need smart marketers to point them in the right direction. And so how do you do that? Well, you have to answer questions like, what is the correct conversion event that the ad campaign should optimize to? Or what should the bid be? What should the budget be? What should the bid to budget ratio be? These are all critical questions that, you know, it's like speaking the language of the ad algorithm. And so bringing it all back, you know, it's taking those magical brand moments and dissecting them into micro brand moments. Like what's the whole journey of conversion events that make up this magical experience for a user? And where are the tipping points? Where are the most crucial conversion events? The ones that mean the most? Well, let's target those with these ads, you know, and it may seem at times like a simple question, but believe me, there's limitless layers of complexity here. And without the human guiding that ad algorithm, the ad algorithm is lost. It has no idea how to answer these questions. You know, these are inputs that we as humans give it. And those inputs for advertisers really are those brand moments. And if you can understand what they're constituted of, I think you have the making of something very powerful. And so this is an example of how the left brain and the right brain of marketing can really come together and do something special.
Love that. So the takeaway for me from that is, even if you're a left brain analytical, you know, paid marketing person, you still need to understand the importance of those brand moments and what they are, so you can optimize for those in the channels that you're running for. And that's how you're going to be most successful.
100%. Yeah.
Love it. Tony, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your, you know, experience and expertise with us. I think this has just been fascinating, picking your brain about this topic. As we kind of wrap up here, you know, if there are listeners who loved what we heard today and now are wondering, well, what do I go do? How do I go apply this? You know, what recommendation would you give to them? What should be the first step that they could go and apply from what we talked about today?
Yeah, I think it's breaking down walls between the right brain half of the marketing org and the left brain half of the marketing org. Get them in the same room, get them working together, because they're both needed. And, you know, I think there's really a 1 + 1 = 3 opportunity here when you get those people all in the same room and you let them be passionate about the things they're passionate about. And, you know, like I've seen that at other companies I've seen the opposite at other companies where there's too many silos. So that's the thing that I would say, takeaway. Really get those different marketers in the same room and make the magic happen.
Love that. Great advice. So Tony, if there are listeners that want to reach out to you, have further questions, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So LinkedIn, Tony Mickelsen. I don't think there's too many Tony Mickelsens out there, so shouldn't be hard to find me. Send me a message, connect with me. I'll definitely respond.
Awesome. And we'll drop the link to your LinkedIn and on the page, so you can find it there. Feel free to just click on it. So Tony, again, thank you so much for taking the time today. This has been an awesome conversation, and wish you the best of luck with Neighbor and, with everything else you have going on.
Thanks, Gary. It was a pleasure.